The young and the restless spoilers under the warm glow of the recessed lighting in the Abbott family's grand drawing room, an atmosphere of brittle calm reigned. The soft tick of an antique clock on the mantelpiece marked the seconds with almost cruel precision. Victoria Abbott, steel-eyed and composed in a tailored ebony sheath dress, stood before a low marble table. In her right hand she gripped a thick dossier bound in black leather, Elena Morales's medical file on Cole Abbott. Elena, her longtime family physician and fellow Genoa City resident, hovered quietly by her side, her expression solemn but unwavering. Victoria's gaze, cold as winter's edge, flicked from the dossier to the braided portrait of her late father, Thomas Abbott, hanging regally on the wall above. Victoria stared down at the dossier, each page a testament to meticulous testing, blood counts, metabolic panels, MRI scans, X-rays, telemetry reports, every single result stamped within normal limits. This was not the work of a lazy doctor or a flawed laboratory. This was a deliberate illusion of illness so perfect in its construction that the one person meant to believe it, Victoria herself, had been all too eager to suspend her skepticism. Her lips pressed into a thin line. So, she said, voice low and controlled, there was no tumor. There were no cardiac anomalies. There was no rare autoimmune disorder. There was nothing. Elena cleared her throat gently. Cole is in robust health, President Abbott. He has no medical condition that would warrant any of this attention. She paused. All of it has been fabricated. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. Across from them, a window overlooked the Abbott Rose Garden, its blooms nodding quietly in the twilight breeze. Cole Abbott himself stood at that very window, back turned, unaware of the confrontation unfolding only feet away. He was holding his phone, poised to place a call that would call the world's bluff, the call that would announce he was well again, that the pity he'd harvested would become his ticket out of this gilded cage. Victoria took a single step toward the dossier, flipping it open to a carefully flagged page. She traced the lines of the laboratory header with a stiletto-sharp fingernail. Do you realize, she asked Elena, not looking up, how deep this betrayal runs? You trusted me with your life's work, every late-night consult, every urgent note in that hospital wing. And yet, this? She snapped the dossier shut. This is an assault on everything the Abbott legacy stands for: integrity, accountability, honor. Her fingers trembled, not with fear, but with righteous fury. Elena laid a steadying hand upon Victoria's shoulder. It was my duty to tell you as soon as I verified it. Her voice broke ever so slightly. He was counting on you to shield him. He was counting on me to keep my confidence. Victoria inhaled, drawing breath as though it tasted like iron. She turned to the door, her heels clicking crisply on the marble floor. Summon the security team, she ordered. And notify corporate affairs that this is a level 1 crisis. I want the board to convene at dawn. In the garden, Cole froze as he heard the click of the French doors opening. He spun around, phone clutched in one hand, hope draining from his face. Victoria emerged, dossier tucked beneath her arm and Elena at her flank. For a moment, he stared at them as though seeing them for the first time. Then the wall of betrayal crashed over him. Victoria, he began, voice hoarse, you don't understand, but Victoria did understand. She had felt the tremor in her own chest whenever he whimpered that his strength was failing. She had worried for him, rearranged her schedule to bring him soup, stayed up late reading the latest research on his condition. She had given him every ounce of her affection and every second of her attention, only to discover it was all a lie. You stole my trust, she said, voice barely above a whisper but echoing in the stillness. You manipulated my compassion, and you weaponized my love for your own gain. She began to circle him, measured steps that spoke of centuries of family discipline, of boardroom triumphs and charitable triumphs, all built on a bedrock of truth. You will pay for this, she said, and the words were not a threat so much as an oracle of inevitability. Cole dropped his phone. It clattered against the flagstones. Victoria, please, he reached out, but his hand trembled so violently it was as though he were holding a live wire. I only wanted to feel alive. I felt invisible, cast aside in the sea of expectations. I thought if I could get everyone's sympathy, if I could be important in some way, his voice cracked, the facade broken. But what he saw in Victoria's eyes was not pity. She held up one hand and cut him off. Important, she repeated, voice toneless. You are an abbot by blood, Cole. You have wealth, privilege, opportunity. Yet you felt compelled to feign illness because you craved attention. You craved control. As she spoke, the garden lights flickered on automatically, bathing them in amber halos. Security personnel in dark suits hurried down the terrace steps, forming a silent cordon that separated Cole from retreat. I trusted you, Victoria continued, with everything, from our family's boardroom secrets to our most private confidences. Her voice broke momentarily and she turned away, clutching the dossier to her chest. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. Cole watched her, silhouette rigid in the soft lamplight, and for a moment realized he had sacrificed the one relationship that might have healed his loneliness. Victoria, he tried again, but she did not answer. Instead, she lifted her head, the shadows of the rose garden tracing patterns across her face. You are stripped of all benefits, she declared, as though reading from an inexorable decree. Your corporate credit lines are frozen, your compensation suspended, your company vehicle impounded. Effective immediately, you are suspended from all family council duties and barred from any access to Abbott Enterprises facilities. Cole's shoulders sagged as though the weight of her words were a physical shroud. Victoria, I'm sorry, he whispered, and it felt too feeble to carry the magnitude of his deception. Sorry did not suffice. Not now. Not ever. Victoria turned to her security detail. Escort Mr. Abbott to the study, she said, voice cold and final. He will remain there under supervision until the board meeting. Notify our legal counsel that we will pursue all actionable charges, misappropriation of company resources, breach of fiduciary duty, emotional distress inflicted on a corporate officer. The words tripped from her tongue with terrifying precision, each one a scalpel carving away the remnants of their shared past. Elena lingered, her gaze flicking between Victoria's rigid posture and Cole's stunned stillness. Then, gently, she stepped forward and touched Cole's arm. Cole, she said softly, this is your moment to take responsibility. It will define who you are from here forward. It was more a plea than a command. Cole looked at her, tears glimmering in his eyes, and for the first time he felt the full breadth of his miscalculation. That no fabricated weakness could replace the real vulnerabilities one must reckon with to be a man of character. As security guided him away, his footsteps muffled on the paving stones, Victoria allowed herself a moment of private anguish. The roses swayed in the evening breeze, their petals drifting like confetti caught in a silent storm. She closed her eyes and drew a slow breath, steeling herself for the battle ahead. The board meeting at dawn, the public statement to the press, the legal proceedings that would follow. The Abbott name demanded justice, demanded that deceit be punished as severely as any breach of trust. In the hush of that shadowed garden, Victoria Abbott made a vow to her father's portrait and to every Abbott before her: no act of treachery, no matter how cunning, would stand in defiance of her uncompromising pursuit of truth. And when the sun rose over Genoa City the next morning, the world would learn the cost of Cole Abbott's deception, and the power of a woman who never forgot the meaning of her family's legacy. Under the gentle glow of the street lamps, the night air was cooling, but Nick's arms around Phyllis radiated warmth that chased away the chill. They were halfway down the quiet, tree-lined avenue, the last of the evening's guests long since dispersed from society, their laughter and murmurs replaced by the distant hum of city traffic. Phyllis's body trembled in his embrace, not with cold but with the residue of raw emotion, the weight of the day's revelations finally crashing over her. Nick held her close, one hand splayed against the small of her back, the other cradling the nape of her neck, his thumb brushing away an errant strand of hair. You don't have to be strong right now, he murmured into her hair, his voice a soft anchor. Not tonight. You've been strong enough for all of us. He paused as Phyllis pressed her face deeper into his shoulder, her eyelashes stained with tears she refused to shed. Let them fall, he insisted gently. Let them wash through you. It's the only way you'll ever get to the other side of this pain. Phyllis tilted her head, lifting her tear-glazed eyes to meet his. In the dim light, she looked fragile yet fiercely determined. She gave him a small, rueful smile, her lips trembling. You're the only person I'd ever allow to see me like this, she whispered. The only one who can say those things to me. Her voice cracked on the last words, and that crack opened the floodgates. Tears spilled free, rolling down her cheeks in quiet rivulets. She did not try to stop them this time. Instead, she let them flow, each one a release of the fear, anger, and shame that had been coiled so tightly in her chest. Nick brushed those tears away with the back of his hand and kissed each one like a benediction. You will be okay, he promised, and then you will be extraordinary. He stroked her hair back from her forehead. I'll always be here, every step of the way. He drew her arms up around his shoulders, anchoring her fear into his strength. His heart hammered in his chest, a fierce rhythm that matched the loyalty and love he felt for her. Behind them, footsteps approached on the flagstone walkway. Sharon's silhouette emerged from the shadows, a soft figure in a cream-colored coat, concern etched across her face. Phyllis and Nick separated slightly as Sharon came into view, the intimacy of their embrace shifting into friendly warmth. Phyllis lifted her head and offered Sharon a tentative smile. Sharon's brow furrowed with apology and relief. I'm sorry to intrude, she said quietly. I didn't mean to interrupt your moment. Her eyes flicked between Nick's outstretched hand and Phyllis's tear-stained cheeks. I came out here looking for a breath of fresh air, a little piece away from the party. Phyllis shook her head, wiping at the last of her tears. You didn't interrupt, she said, her voice steadier now. We were just talking. She glanced at Nick, who nodded in agreement, offering Sharon a reassuring smile. You know, Phyllis continued, lifting her chin, we really were just discussing our daughter. Sharon's posture relaxed, understanding flickering in her eyes. That's great, she said, stepping closer. Then her gaze turned to the velvet-soft hush of the avenue ahead. You know, Phyllis, Summer would love a trip to Milan this summer. I've been talking to her, and she's dying to see the art, the fashion, everything. She turned to Nick. Maybe you two could take the kids for a week. Phyllis's lips curved in a genuine smile, the first unburdened upturn of her mouth all evening. That sounds wonderful, she said, surprising herself with how easily the word came. She glanced at Nick, warmth flooding back into her eyes. Getting out of town with you, just for a little while, would do me good. She took a step closer to him, their shoulders brushing. I need to do this for myself. Nick nodded, the commitment in his gaze unwavering. Absolutely, he agreed. We'll set it up. Summer in Milan, just us and the kids. He reached for her hand, fingers intertwining. You deserve a chance to remember how beautiful life can be. Phyllis pressed her hand to her heart, feeling the steadiness return to her pulse. She lifted her face to Nick's, the memory of tears still fresh but tinged now with hope. The tension in her shoulders eased as she realized that, despite everything, she had not faced this storm alone. She had Nick, and soon she would have the laughter of her children echoing through the streets of Milan, a new chapter unfolding beyond the shadows of betrayal. Sharon stepped back, sensing she had offered enough for tonight. She gave them both a tender nod. I'll let you two plan your escape, she said lightly, her tone warm. Remember, my lasagna's always here if you need a break from Italian cuisine. Phyllis laughed, a genuine, wholehearted sound that mingled with the rustle of leaves overhead. Thank you, she said, voice bright. I might just take you up on that. As Sharon retreated into the night, Phyllis and Nick remained hand in hand beneath the lamp's soft halo. The city lay quiet around them, the weight of the world momentarily lifted by promises of togetherness, of family, of healing. Nick drew Phyllis close once more and whispered, "No matter what comes next, we face it together." Phyllis laid her head against his chest, listening to the steady thump of his heartbeat. In that moment, the hush between her tears and her smile, she knew she was home. And as they stood beneath the stars, the promise of Milan glimmered like a beacon, guiding them forward into the life they would rebuild, side by side.